But Angus, can they afford that right now? I mean, and more to the point, is there a market for that? I mean, maybe inside the United States, but if they wanted to export, not that they export a huge amount of commodities, but China's not wanting to go green anytime soon. They want to keep burning the coal or firing up the coal-fired stations and burning the oil.
Look, I think the bottom line is no, America can't afford it. You know, the trade deficit's going to hit, you know, close to $1 trillion in the next 12 to 18 months.
And explain to me why that then makes these countries that hold US dollars very much in the box seat now.
Well, America's printing so much money to bail out the economy, to bail out the financial system. The problem they're going to have, it's not today, but down the track, 18 months, 2 years down the track, they're going to have a lot of inflation. Essentially, they are creating inflation by creating all this extra money that they've pumped into the economy. And, you know, just maybe, you know, in 2 years from now, many countries will be more reluctant to hold US paper, US bonds, because of this inflation problem.
And the extension of that is, what do you do with your money then, as a government?
Well,
we're park it in dollars, but you park it.
We've been advocating gold, you know, 5 to 10% of your portfolio in gold for quite some time now. But also, you know, as Jim Rogers said before, you know, I think commodity prices are still going to do very well in this environment. And, you know, what we've sort of seen has been a sharp drop in recent months. But, you know, medium to longer term, I think that because of this inflationary backdrop, we're going to see the secular bull market in commodities continue for some time.
Okay, at what point do you get, though, that a total cleansing of liquidation of positions? This seems to be the theme at the moment. Everyone needs cash, like it or not. No one will lend to one another, as Jim was saying. When does that scenario play its course?
Well, I think that the banks are lending to one another. You know, the systemic risk is reducing in the financial system because the governments around the world are propping up the banks and guaranteeing the loans, and they're putting money into the economy. So, you know, I think we are seeing the system sort of free up. With respect to the deleveraging, we've probably seen the worst of it. And we are seeing markets begin to stabilise now. So, you know, arguably, the worst of the deleveraging is over, and we might see commodities begin to do better, you know, in the next 12, 18 months.
Geoffrey, let's talk a broader trade thing. You're basically saying all bets are off, as far as I understand it. Once Obama comes through the front door, he's going to be protectionist with a big P.
Well, protectionism, of course, the question is what that means. I mean, the mood in America is certainly anti-free trade. It was anti-free trade 12 months ago.
So what does that mean for Australia?
Well, the big question, I think, is could the Democrats roll back agreements? And I think the answer there is no. Ask a different question: would the US be the champion of more free trade and sort of Asia-Pacific, APEC, let's say an APEC free trade area? I think the answer there is also no, a strong no. And the big question for Australia, presumably, is what happens in the US-China relationship. I mean, the dollar's down, presumably in part because the markets think that China can't sell as much to the US, so it doesn't need as many Australian raw materials today.
Isn't that the implicit bargain that will have to be struck to return to the dollar in order for the Americans to continue to have that security blanket of Chinese investment in their country? Well, they have to give ground on the trade issue.
Well, I think what's going to happen actually in the US-China relationship is it's going to change. It's going to change from one in which China shipped cheap goods to the US and the US borrowed money from China to pay for it, to a sort of foreign direct investment regime. And in the short term, what that'll mean is that Chinese asset holders and sovereign wealth funds in the Gulf are going to want to buy fixed assets in the US at knockdown prices. And I believe there'll be a political backlash against that, because I don't think Americans are ready yet to have massive Chinese ownership of iconic American firms.
Mm-hmm. Angus, you have had a presence in the United States for a few years now. Just in the last few moments we've got available, just give me a sense of what it's been like doing business in the last 12 months.
Look, business has been difficult in Australia, in the last 2 months, but it's been terrible in the United States. And what we're sort of sensing from our sort of US clients is that everybody's sort of putting their heads down. Spending's been reined in. You're getting a lot of baby boomers who have been hurt very badly in the stock market, a lot of liquidating of their investment portfolios. There's a lot of fear over there.
Could there be, like you were saying to me earlier, perhaps a 3 to 6 month respite? Just the optimism that comes with a new president?
Look, I think we could easily see the market get back to 10,000. But, the United States is not out of the woods yet. The bear market's going to go for some time. But historically, when a new president has come in, it's been very positive for stocks, and stocks have rallied.
But you're worried that inflation, this unspoken bugbear, could ensure if anything, a V-shaped?
Look, I think inflation is the big problem in 18 months from now. You know, that's going to be the big problem in the United States. Short term, looking out to next year, it's going to be how much does the economy contract given the shock in the financial system.
Geoffrey, briefly in one sentence, is Obama going to be long-term the kind of saviour for American economy that we need to have?
Saviour, I don't know. Safe pair of hands, I would bet yes.
Gentlemen, we'll leave it there. Many thanks. Fascinating few hours yet to come. That was, of course, Geoffrey Garrett from the US Studies Centre in Sydney, CEO there, and Angus Geddes, Managing Director of Fat Profits. That is the program. Do take care. I'm Carson Scott.